It has been way too long since I've done one of these wrap-ups about the Your Morning Guru show and told you guys what different business guru lives I've been living and what different weird health and wellness experiments I've been trying. But I did a lot of weird stuff and I've got a lot of reviews for you guys, so stick around because I'm going to tell you the story of how I followed the law of attraction for a week, followed Dr. Phil for a week, tried intermittent fasting for a week, and debated a ton of people that I disagree with live on stream, plus ate a bunch of snacks from Canada. So stick around.
Hit you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should pick up lesbianism.
Chicago. You guys asked for it.
What's up, my fellow small business supporters? I'm Savvy, and welcome back to Savvy Writes Books, the channel where we talk about books and business. And if you're not already subscribed, please take a minute to subscribe because every Monday and Friday at 11 a.m. Central, I put out new videos about books and business. Please check out right here where you can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter, and especially check out the social media accounts for Forever Home Friends, which is my own small business producing books, plushies, toys, merch, and more based on real rescue dogs and their journeys to adoption. 10% of our profits benefit animal shelter, so give us a follow over there because we have lots of cute dog and plushie pics and things like that, and I hope you guys enjoy. Some brief context on what I'm talking about here if this is something that you're new to. So I have a second channel called Your Morning Guru. It is linked in the description below. I recommend you check it out. It's a lot of fun. And that is kind of my podcast / live stream channel. Our show is a hybrid live stream, podcast, and morning show broadcast type of thing. The premise is that every week my friend RK Gold, he and I live the lives of a different business guru, self-help guru, wellness guru, someone like that, read their self-help book, give it a review, and tell the audience, did their advice work? Was there anything good that came from this? And what do we need to watch out for? What warning signs are there for the future? Our mission statement on the show is that our core value above everything else is curiosity. We want to try things that could potentially not turn out super well for us, but, you know, within reason. We also want to see if we can learn things from people we disagree with. This is a show where we shit on Grant Cardone a lot, but that's not the only thing we do. We also see, well, can we learn anything from him? Broken clocks right twice a day and all that. We stream that show every morning at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern on the second channel. Because we're very grateful that our audience has stuck with us through some really emotionally intense weeks these past couple weeks, we are actually doing an audience appreciation week right now, and the guru that we're following is Oprah. She's known for giving away lots of things, so we're doing a lot of fun giveaways this week as well, so stay tuned for that. So, starting a couple weeks ago, picking up where we left off after the last update, I lived the law of attraction for a week. To live the law of attraction, I read the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and it was worse than I expected, you guys. Just like every week, we went into Law of Attraction Week with an open mind to say, you know what, we're very skeptical of the Law of Attraction. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but we're going to read the book. We're going to look at some of the videos. We're going to look at the source material. We're going to try to manifest things. What can come of this? See if any piece of it works. So we read The Secret. During our stream, we also worked on vision boards. Your Morning Guru and the community that we have in the chat, we created a subreddit. So on the subreddit, we were having people post their vision boards there as well. But the main thing we did that week was discuss the book The Secret and reviewed it, and it was terrible. The premise of the book The Secret is not just that positive thinking puts you in a good mood or positive thinking can be beneficial to your success. I would have been able to get on board with this book if the premise were something like positive thinking will help you to gain confidence, and gaining confidence is good for accomplishing your goals because you're more likely to take a risk or something like that. I could have gotten behind that. What this book was that positive thinking sends electromagnetic frequencies from your brain out into the universe, which then magnetically attracts positive events to happening to you. Now, your question might be, Savvy, was there any science to back this up? Was there even any attempt at maybe debunked pseudoscience to back this up? The answer may not surprise you. It is a big resounding no. There was absolutely not even an attempt to back this up with anything other than testimonials of people saying that it worked. But a lot of the rules of the law of attraction seem to be completely inconsistent. One moment, someone would be saying that the law of attraction only works for you and you cannot influence other people with the law of attraction. You can only attract things to you. And then someone else would give an example of, well, this guy used to get bullied at work because his coworkers were mean, and once he started using the law of attraction, his mean coworkers all quit. Well, wouldn't that be affecting his coworkers? And wouldn't that be the law of attraction affecting other people? So I was just incredibly confused reading this book. But the book did a lot more than confuse me. This book was actively harmful. If you guys saw the video that I did a couple weeks ago, I actually did a tier ranking of all the business and self-help books that I've read in recent years. The Secret was in the lowest category, and the lowest category was labeled offensive and or harmful to society. And that is what this book was. Because the farther along you went in it, it became clear that the law of attraction was used to justify a lot of shitty things that have happened to people. The author acknowledged that, yeah, it might be hard to believe in the law of attraction because, well, you might think these people that all suffered this giant hurricane that wiped out half of their town, that they couldn't have been attracting that to them, could they? And she was like, yes, actually. Subconsciously, they must have been putting out negative energy into the universe because that's the only way that negative things could possibly happen. There was so much victim blaming in this book, it was ridiculous. There was also a section about how if you look at fat people, it will make you fat because you're magnetically attracting fat to your body. The book had no basis in reality. So I would not recommend the book The Secret to anyone whatsoever. If we're going to go with the premise of curiosity and learning from people we disagreed with, I will say that what we learned from Law of Attraction Week was setting clear goals, visualizing things, and setting a vision board can help, or figuring out the right to get somewhere. That's something I've always believed, and I think that, giving ourselves time to put that into practice was helpful. However, it's yet another example of taking a concept that could be good or could be helpful in theory and taking it to such an extreme just for the purpose of selling books or something like that, that at the end of the day, it does a lot more harm than good. Following the Law of Attraction Week, we decided to try intermittent fasting for a week. For intermittent fasting week, we decided to have our friend Kat Benson on the stream with us because she is a licensed dietitian, and we didn't want to just jump headfirst into a diet without talking to someone who has some expertise in the matter. So we read the book Life in the Fasting Lane, written by Dr. Jason Fung, and we also had Kat Benson on our stream as our interviewed guest twice during that week. We discussed a lot of the pros and the cons of intermittent fasting. We were reading through the book Life in the Fasting Lane, but we didn't just take that book directly at its word. We also talked to Kat about some of the more controversial things going on in the dietitian community surrounding Dr. Jason Fung, and some people thinking that maybe he might be stretching some of these things for the sake of marketing abilities, and I don't have the authority to comment on that, but what I will say is that intermittent fasting, once again, was helpful to me in moderation. It's not something that I think I'll do 24/7, but I think giving myself fasting windows that were like, okay, I will stop eating or consuming calories at 7 p.m. tonight, that was helpful to me just because my inclination after I get all my work done and when I'm relaxing for the evening is to grab a beer, to grab a glass of bourbon. Next thing I know, I'm consuming a ton of alcohol, and that's just not super healthy over a long period of time. There is a caveat, and that's that when we went into intermittent fasting week, we wanted to let our audience know that we didn't want them to follow this along with us. We didn't want anybody to potentially put themselves in a situation that could be unsafe, especially if anyone had a history of eating disorders. Now, I personally do have a history of eating disorders. However, my eating disorders are very calorie counting based because with my OCD, the fixation was on math and calorie numbers and things like that, whereas time of day allows things to be a little more flexible and more vague and actually deters me from fixating on those things. So for me, it was actually okay. However, just a huge disclaimer, biggest disclaimer in the world. Do not take any advice from me. None of this is intended as advice. This is just me reflecting on my personal process. If you're listening to me and you're like, well, I have a history of eating disorders and I also have OCD, so maybe I will be okay to do it, talk to a doctor first. Do not assume that your eating disordered patterns or OCD patterns are going to function the same way as mine, because even within similar diagnoses, things can be wildly different. So it's not something that I would recommend other people try. However, I am glad that I tried it, developing some of those behaviors. Again, not sticking to a rigid thing, not saying I'm only allowed to eat at these times and then never again, I think is a little bit too extreme for me still, but saying, you know, stop consuming things after this time because I know that my inclination will be to consume too much alcohol and allow myself only to consume alcohol on the weekends. I think that has been a healthier practice for me. So that is overall what I took away from that. Basically, a lot of what I'm taking away from these weeks in general is that you try the thing at its full extent, and then you take a piece of it, or you take a lesser version of it and try to develop that into a habit, and it builds together to make, you know, the right life for you, which I think a lot of people already know, but I think it can be really easy to fall into the trap of, oh my god, this person must have all the answers, I need to do everything they say to a T, and the truth is that you gotta take what works for you and leave the rest behind. After intermittent fasting week, we did a week of scammers, criminals, and con artists. There were a lot of business guru types of people that we wanted to follow and wanted to talk about, but they were either completely discredited and debunked, or they were currently in jail, and so following them and their advice for an entire week would probably be an exercise in futility, so we thought it would be a lot more fun to, instead of doing what those people do, a lot of which is illegal, we decided again to study those people for a week, and that week was really fun. So we talked about Adam Newman, the founder of WeWork, we talked about Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos, we talked about Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street guy, we talked about a lot of people. We reacted to some videos of theirs, we talked about their histories, and what I think was most fun was that on Wednesday of that week, we had Mike Winnett on our channel for an interview. And if you guys don't know Mike Winnett, I will link his channel in the description below. Highly recommend him. I think we have a lot of crossover though. He's actually one of my big inspirations in going into this field of exposing scammers and exposing business gurus and things like that, because he has the whole Contrepreneur series on his channel, which I love and have been a fan of for a really long time. So the fact that he was up for coming on the channel and talking to us when he's a bigger creator, I was really grateful for. And he talked a lot about, you know, his process of kind of infiltrating some of those events, getting the insider knowledge, figuring out what a lot of those people are doing and what their tactics are, and how he's learned to spot scammers and things like that. It was a really fascinating discussion, and I had a great time with that. On Friday that week, we talked about Fire Festival and Billy McFarland, and that was really interesting and a lot of fun. The next couple weeks, we tried to do something that was more like reaction and broadcast show based and less altering our lifestyle based, because RK, my co-host, was studying for a big exam that he was taking to get a licensure in the finance field where he works. So he was really stressed out with studying, and I was like, well, this is not the week to alter our diet, alter our workout routine, alter our wake up times. Like, let's do some things that are interesting to study, but we can study them just on the stream. So we did a YouTube drama week, because a lot of people in our chat had been asking, what do you think about the fact that the Frenemies podcast broke up? Or what do you think about the fact that this beauty guru did this or whatever? So throughout the week, we decided to bring on one person each day who was very invested in that part of YouTube discourse, I guess. And we had some talks about what's going on in the YouTube world. And then on Friday, we kind of did a wrap up where we talked about everything. We tried to talk a little bit about the intersection of mental health and YouTube, but again, with the disclaimer that I don't want to ever speculate on someone else's mental health, because that's for them and their psychologist or psychiatrist or therapist alone to work on, and that can function very differently. But I do think there are a lot of really interesting discussions to have regarding how YouTube affects the way we see the world and affects the way we interact with each other, and the weird lack of boundaries and weird parasocial relationships that seem to develop with people. But that could be a whole separate topic, so I don't even know if I should go into that right now. But that was a week that we did as well, just to discuss some of those issues. The following week, we followed Dr. Phil for a week, and that led us into a whole discussion about the problems with the troubled teen industry. Before we got to that, we talked about some of Dr. Phil's actual business guru type of behavior, because while yes, he's a TV psychologist and all of that, he actually had some ties with Amway that I didn't know about until we discussed it in this week. How back in 2005, he had a huge scandal with some diet pills that he had been selling, and how the same company that manufactured for Amway manufactured for them. And so then when there were some lawsuits about the pills, then then one of the settlements that customers could choose were pills that were from Amway, and it was just wild, that connection that happened there. So we delved into that. We read through some of the lawsuits that Dr. Phil had gone through. But then what a lot of people really wanted to see was our take on the whole, like, Catch Me Outside thing with the girl, Danielle Bergoli, who now has a music career under the name Bad Baby, and her recent expose video that she had done. So for some context, she went on the Dr. Phil show when she was 13 years old. She was having a lot of trouble with her family and having a lot of trouble, you know, in school and getting in trouble with the law a little bit and things like that. She was going down a path that would have been, you know, difficult to come back from in a lot of cases. But the Dr. Phil show did not help her. This girl needed legitimate one-on-one therapy, not to be broadcast in front of the entire world. So what Dr. Phil did was he sent her to this place called the Turnabout Ranch, which was basically a troubled teen ranch where you send teenagers who are getting involved in crime or doing things that seem like they're going to be detrimental to their future, and you, like, have them connect with nature and take care of animals, which sounds good in theory. However, she recently, now that she's, I think, 18 now, so this happened about 5 years ago, she recently exposed a lot of the horrible things that happened there, the ways that adults were putting kids to work, the ways that adults were refusing to trust kids or listen to their boundaries and things like that, and just all of the abuse that happened that was swept under the rug because of the misconception that, well, these kids are, quote, bad kids, so they can't be trusted. That week, we actually had a couple of our viewers on. We had one of our viewers named Caroline, who has just finished getting her master's in psychology and is training to become a school psychologist. So we got her on to talk a little bit about the psychological impacts of those type of things. And then we had Chandra, who actually did go to one of those places, not because of something that she did, but because it was a religious-based organization that her parents were involved in, and it had a lot of cult-like elements. So she talked a lot from her own perspective about a lot of the terrible things that can happen in those kind of environments. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to her for sharing her story about that. I think we took what could have been just like a meme TV personality and really got into an important discussion about the implications of what he's doing and what he's promoting. After that, the following week was the week that RK was actually taking his exam, so we decided to do a fun, celebratory kind of week that week, so we did a week of celebrating Canada. It's been a running joke on our channel that we make jokes about the Canadian and US differences. It might sound silly when I say that. You'd have to watch the show, I guess, to get the context, but that's been a running thing, and we have a lot of Canadian viewers, and so they're often talking about Canadian culture, and what we've found is that a lot of our viewers are dispersed throughout a ton of different provinces in Canada. So throughout Canada week, we tried some Canada snacks. I ordered some ketchup chips. I ordered some all-dressed chips, which I love. I love the all-dressed chips. I got the elk jerky like I did during Joe Rogan week. I got Canada Smarties, which are different than US Smarties, right? In the US, the Smarties are the chalky, sugary things, and in Canada, they're called Rockets, I guess. But what Smarties are in Canada is kind of similar to like what M&Ms are here. They're like candy coated chocolate. It was very interesting. They're very tasty. So I ate some Canada snacks. We explored some funny Canadian commercials, like the House Hippo commercial, and we watched this commercial with these puppets going, "Don't you put it in your mouth." It was hilarious. Unfortunately, I don't think this episode is available to view because we got hard copyright claimed, but we interviewed our friend Keelan, who is often in our chat, and also I'm going to talk more about her in a future video because she's the cover designer for my upcoming novel. But she was actually an extra on the show Degrassi The Next Generation when she was a teenager. So we watched that episode, not in full. We turned off the sound. We skipped around. We didn't want to get copyright claimed, but the Degrassi owned YouTube channel, they copyright claim like no one's business. They find it. So we got claimed and our video like isn't viewable, so I hate that. But we interviewed her about her experience on the Degrassi set and what that was like and how it was being an extra and things like that. It was super fun, and I'm really glad that she was able to be there for that. The following week was really intense. So we've done a couple softball weeks. You know, we've done the Canada week was really just for fun. We did like Dr. Phil week did get into some really heavy topics, but it also didn't require a ton of outside preparation. We were like, okay, let's do something intense. So a lot of people had been talking recently about the debate that there was supposed to be between Steven Crowder and the H3 podcast. And so a lot of talk about that was going on. So I kind of looked up Steven Crowder's channel. I watched a few things from him. I'm not a fan of him. He seems like a huge asshole, to be honest. But he's kind of a right-wing YouTube commentator, and he has this series that's called Change My Mind, right? So he does that thing, like, a lot of us have seen the meme where there's a guy sitting at a table and it's like, something, change my mind on the sign in front of him. So that's who Steven Crowder is. He's the guy in that meme, but he goes to college campuses, puts a controversial statement on a table, and invites people to come up to him and try to change his mind. So while we reacted to his videos for the first day of that week, and we were like, wow, seems like really bad faith. A lot of his opinions are kind of nasty. He seems like kind of a dick. But I think the change my mind idea is interesting, and if we can do a better version of that, that actually goes along really well with our mission as a channel, which is, can we learn from people we disagree with? Breaking down echo chambers on the internet, trying to delve really deep into a variety of perspectives, even if on the surface we know that it's something we're not going to like. And it also goes along with curiosity, of taking that curious approach to, where did these beliefs come from? Where did you get that opinion from? What research did you do that led you here? So we decided to do a change my mind type of week. And we had a different, pretty intense, pretty controversial discussion / debate. As I've talked about before, and you guys have seen, I've done debates on this channel before. I usually like to do debates in a more formal and structured format. However, because a lot of these topics are very complex and often require defining terms and defining a scope and making sure it's very clear, it almost seemed more natural to do it as more of an interview process while we're still exploring these ideas. So we had it as kind of an interview and discussion back and forth kind of thing with people who had the complete opposite views of what we had on a variety of topics. The hardest day we had that week, which part of me, this was one that part of me wonders if it was a mistake to do this. And I guess with our mission of curiosity and following, like seeing something that we're curious about and following it, there's going to be times where we get ourselves into trouble or we get ourselves into a bad situation. I think that just means we're going to have to be a little more cautious in the future. I'll have people let me know their thoughts in the comments below if you watch this, but I let people know that if you don't want to tune in for this, like, I understand, because it's going to be a lot. We decided to do a debate about the red pill. I'm also running a poll on both YouTube and Patreon right now if you guys want to see me break down whether or not the red pill is a cult, because I'm actually kind of trying to explore that right now. But right now I'm just going to give a little bit of a reflection on the red pill discussion and how that went. So the reason that I even had red pillars on my radar in the first place was that my friend Emma Thorne, who's in the anti-mlm community, had put up a video kind of debunking some of the, like, I don't know if it was red pill specifically or a men's rights activist claims and things like that. And red pill, just to be clear, the red pill movement and the men's rights movement, they have a lot of crossover, but they're all a little bit different, which I'll get into. So she was doing that, right? And then there were two very prominent voices in the red pill community who have a channel with 100,000 subscribers that did a reaction to her. And she started getting a lot of harassment from that, so I reached out and asked her if she was comfortable with it first, and it's still on my channel, I'll link it up in the cards. I did a video reacting to their reaction and kind of critiquing a lot of the points that they were making because of how they weren't really relevant or didn't make a lot of sense and things like that. So I did a video about that. And from that, one of the guys who ran the Red Pill channel actually followed me on Twitter and sent me a message that was like, hey, I saw your video responding to me. I actually appreciate that you took it from, such kind of a idea-based perspective instead of ever resorting to personal attacks. And I was like, yeah, of course, that's what my channel and the Your Morning Guru channel, that's what it's all about. I think we talked and he was like, if you ever want to come on our show and debate this, we can, and things like that. So I had said to him, we're actually doing a Change My Mind week, so we could potentially talk about this and actually do this debate with each other, since we've done the same thing basically over text. So we decided to do that. It was 4 hours long, and was there any progress made? I think there were a lot of things learned about where certain thoughts come from or where certain practices come from and things like that. They did not change my mind in thinking that the red pill is a beneficial way of behaving or a beneficial set of behaviors or a beneficial community or anything like that. No, because seeing how a lot of people behave, I think that it's almost like it's hard, someone said this to me recently, it's hard to convince people that you should care about other people. So like, for example, if I said, I'm happy to discuss any of these ideas with you, but if you could do it without using slurs, I would appreciate it, not because I don't want to discuss things with you or I want to tone police you, but because when you make people in the chat uncomfortable, it starts to build a barrier and makes it harder for them to want to engage with you on good faith. And then they would be like, see, that's the thing, women just want to tone police. And like, it would get a little bit like talking in circles to an extent. It was kind of difficult. I just want to, again, I did this the next morning on our show after this happened. I said this the next morning. I just want to give a million thank yous to the people in the audience who were there sharing their opinion, especially people from my audience, because a lot of their audience came to watch as well. So there were actually a lot of arguments going on in the comments. And so I appreciate a lot my viewers who were taking on those ideas as well. That's kind of what we're all about on that channel, but it's not always easy. And so I really appreciate that. And I just want to say to the viewers who were like, I don't want to watch this. This is a little too much for me. This is stressful. That is more than reasonable. And I do not have any problem with that. I knew going into it that this might be a hot mess. And I still have a part of me that's like, I kind of regret doing this just because I regret, like, the people that did want to watch, I regret putting that stress on them. And I feel bad. So if anyone in my audience who watched that debate is like, Savvy, this debate stressed me the fuck out, and I want to yell at you about that, like, please DM me and yell at me about it, and I will apologize to you personally, because I feel really bad about that. And I think that it was kind of a learning experience as well as a lesson in when does it become too far to engage with ideas that are so different from yours? Is there a point where you have to say, this idea is so different that even just talking to someone about it is going to be a problem? Which as I've told you guys, I'm very idealistic. I'm very, I take people directly at their word of what they say to me. It's an OCD trait as well as just like my own perspective on the world, that I tend to, like, when people say something to me, I'm like assuming that that's what they mean. I've always kind of held the viewpoint, I hadn't run into this before, because I've always held the viewpoint that yes, every idea can be engaged with. And I might be wrong about that. And I think that's part of the show, is finding out places where we're wrong and being willing to admit that. I think it was a learning experience that we did it. I'm not going to have those guys back on my channel again. Absolutely not. But there's a part of me that's like, did I learn something about, was this just too outside the scope of what's normal to me? Or is it important to engage with it? See, this is the part I'm still conflicted on, because I'm like, was it a good thing that I had this discussion? Because now me as a feminist and my mostly feminist audience is more aware of where these ideas specifically come from. Like, it's very easy to say the ideas come from just like angry hormonal men who want to oppress people, or the ideas come from patriarchy and male supremacy. Like, yes, you can say those things, and yes, those are true to an extent, but they're also not telling the full story. Like, there's more detailed things that I think if this movement is actually going to be dangerous, do we need to understand it so that we can take it down? Or do we not need to take it down? Is it a fringe enough group of people that it doesn't pose a real threat to society as a whole? I want you guys to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because I'm trying to decide if I should make a video on whether the red pill is a cult, because I don't know if I need to get, if it's like, if I now, after having had that conversation with them, if I now have the responsibility of having to share my thoughts and my research on why I think they're a cult, or if I should just let it go because I don't really like their fans. Part of me is like, it's good that their fans know about me because I want everyone to see alternate perspectives, but at the same time, there's only so much of comments I can take that are like, in a better society, natural selection should have eliminated you already, and things like that, that I can take before it becomes like, just such a distraction from the actual type of book and business commentary videos that I'm trying to work on. Please let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. That was a very long-winded way of saying everything. This week on Your Morning Guru, we are doing Oprah Week. We are looking into Oprah and her show and her history and doing a lot of giveaways because it's also Audience Appreciation Week. Last week, the audience stuck with us through debates on not just the red pill, but on gender segregation in bathrooms, on abortion. Those were the other two major and emotional topics that we discussed. And then about MLMs and essential oils and other things that are more normal to the content of our channel. This week we are like, let's appreciate the audience. They're amazing and they do a lot of good stuff for us. If you guys haven't been able to tune into the morning shows, that is the overall recap of that. I've appreciated the feedback that a lot of people who say, yeah, I'm not able to catch them in the mornings. It's not a good time for me. So I appreciate when you do the recaps. I'm going to keep these coming every couple weeks as we keep doing more and more of these shows. We've got a lot of fun and interesting stuff planned in the future. I think we're going to start doing a few more like workout based ones and trying to figure out like what workout plans might work for us and stuff like that. And of course, we're going to find more and more business people to follow because there's a lot of people out there to study, and not just people, there's also a lot of concepts and a lot of trends and things like that related to health and wellness and everything and business and lifestyle. And yeah, we're just going to keep it going. So thank you so much to everyone who watches the show. Thank you to everyone who watches this channel, even if you're not able to tune into that show, for watching this recap. I will see you guys, if you do watch the show, I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. If you don't watch that show, then I will see you again on this channel for a new video on Friday. But in the meantime, please don't forget to support small businesses, and don't forget to let me know what you think about everything in the comments below. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Bye!
Hit you some nuts.
There was lots of memes.
Makes me wonder if I should take up lesbianism.
Chicago. You guys asked for it.